And today's discussion is focused on post-election Bangladesh and Nepal, uh, titled Dynasty, Power and Stability. How this dynasty and power plays a role in these two countries to bring the stability and development. As we know, that Bangladesh and Nepal have gone through varying phase of democracy and governance and political dominance. For both countries experienced youth-led protests that led to the government changes in 2024 and 2025. At the same time, their journeys to the ballot box led to the formation of the new governments. The panel will analyze the post-election scenario and prospects in the both countries and explore how these developments impact the wider South Asian region and the Indo-Pacific. To discuss this, all this, and we will have some questions. For this 1 hour, we have the stellar panel. I would like to formally introduce our panelists. We have Lieutenant General Dr. Karim. He is a former professor at the Malaysia University and China's Foreign Affairs University, Beijing. He is currently serving as a professor at the Bangladesh University of Professionals. He has also served as the chief of both the National Defense College and the Defense Service Command and Staff College in Bangladesh. His areas of interest include geopolitics, international relations, and strategic management. He has written and published several books and articles in national and international journals. Welcome, Dr. Karim. We have Major General Binod Basner. He is a prominent Nepali military strategist and political and security analyst, a retired senior officer of the Nepalese army. He is widely recognized for his expertise in South Asian geopolitics, national security, and defense diplomacy. I think I regularly read your one article that published in the South Asian forum or anywhere in the Nepalese newspaper or somewhere, and that helps me to understand the geopolitics in the broader way. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We have Professor Sri Radha Datta. Dr. Datta is a professor of international affairs at OP Jindal Global University. She is also a non-resident senior fellow with the Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore. She also served as the chair of the neighborhood relations at the Vivekananda International Foundation. And in spite of that, she served in various think tanks in Indian and South Asian countries. She has written and published several articles and books on national and international journals, and she has written recently as her book. I just start reading of her book of neighborhood that she wrote about Indian neighborhood, and she's expertise on that. Welcome, Dr. Datta. We have Dr. Jahid Khan she is also joined us from Dhaka. He's a visiting research fellow at Reading University, UK, and is a country registrar at the American International University, Bangladesh. He is a research scholar at in the Reading University and is also served in the different positions at the Bangladesh Air Force. Welcome, Dr. Jahid. And before we dive into the substance and start our Q&A session, I would like to invite our panelists for 3 minutes opening statement on the title and what are their insights is. Start with the Lieutenant General Karim. Professor Karim, before you start, let me announce that opinions and views are presented here are personal, should not be constituted to any organization. Thank you. And Professor Karim, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Indo, for your very topical issue on the post-election, uh, the state of affairs in Bangladesh and Nepal. I'll mostly be talking about Bangladesh, and we have another expert from Nepal. I think he's going to talk on Nepal, and we have a great moderator here who's an expert on both Bangladesh and Nepal. Is Professor Sira Dotto, and I think her opinion would be more objective, more balanced, and we look forward to that. Thank you once again, Indu, for inviting me time and again uh, to your programs. Very recently, I have published, edited this book. This is a post. We have done an assessment on the July revolution that happened in 2024. The title of the book, A Nation's Aspirations, the July Uprising 2024. I'll share the e-copy with all of you, hopefully, within a very short time. In fact, I have edited this book, actually. Our
Thank
lecturers
you.
in my university, they have
Congratulations. Thank you,
contributed,
sir.
and also students, they have contributed to this volume. Now, the post Bangladesh is, of course, South Asia overall is a, what should I say, is having all kinds of dynastic politics, starting from Pakistan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, India. India is a good case. Motilal Nehru was the president of the All India Congress in 1919, and his great grandson Rahul Gandhi abdicated the power of the president of National Congress in 2019 because of the bad result that happened. Pakistan, you see the Bhutto family. Nepal is the same problem. Kumaranga and all those, these are the problems. And Bangladesh is uh, totally brittled with dynasty politics, starting from 72. Sheikh Mujib, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, his family, and her daughter ruled for about more than 20 years. This country, then again, Ziaur Rahman came, and his family is still ruling. His son is in the power, and his son, who's leading the Bangladesh Nationalist Party (BNP), has got a two-third majority, and that's a bad signal for the country. That's my personal opinion. Again, any party getting two-third in this country has led the country to disaster. Hopefully, it doesn't happen next time. Same thing happened with Sheikh Hasina. She had overwhelming two-third majority, not three-fourth majority in 2018 election, and that brought disaster for the country. So we are a little worried about that. But then the revolution that was, that had happened in Bangladesh in July 2024 has changed the mindset of the people of this country. They want some change in the real sense. Not the people. They want capable people. They want brilliant people. They do not want politicized people. No, 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 not the political men. No, they must be real. They can deliver goods do goods and services to the people. That's lacking in Bangladesh. But then we are going back probably to the dynastic politics. People are apprehensive. Let's borrow the idea of people's sovereignty borrowed from the French Revolution. That's not happening, so to say. But we have just started off. It is only 1 month. This government is in power. It is too early to evaluate this government. But there is going to be some political problem in the country after the Ramadan is over. Our parliament has just sat down for the first time. The first session is going on. And you must have noticed that there's a rise of Islamism in Bangladesh politics. Jamaat Islami has come up as the second largest party, and they have got very good, about 37% of the votes cast. BNP has earned about more than 50%, but Jamaat Islam has got 37 to 39% votes. That's amazing. So there's a rise of Islamism in this country. I'm not saying in a negative term. I'm taking it as a positive term. Let them be also part of the mainstream politics. And we should not take it negatively. We should also get them conditioned to the conventional politics of Bangladesh. Now, there is a July Charter enunciated by the last government and was propounded by the students party, they were the leaders actually. They made a big change in this country, big change in this country. Had they not been there, people say that foreign hands were there. Could be there were foreign hands in that, but they were very, very brilliant, very, very. They had displayed heroism, so to say, to make this country free from dynasty politics, dirty politics, bad politics, inimical politics, confrontational politics, and lack of institutionalization in this country. Judiciary was totally subservient to executive. Parliament was subservient to the executive, and they want to get rid of this. The Article 17 or Constitution is a big impediment to the functioning of parliamentary democracy in this country. And unless you change that, but there is a bad tone. People don't want to leave power, especially the Prime Minister sycophants. They create problem. Now, if July Charter is not honored, Bangladesh might head for a problem in the near future. Our economy is in a very bad shape. We are depending totally on remittances, and there is a war in the Middle East. If you don't get the good flow of remittances, we'll end up in problem. Production is in problem. Investment is in problem, and there is serious lack of internal political democracy in our political parties. That's a big problem. It is not changing at all. Unless you change that, nothing is going to move. This is my personal opinion. Unless you have proper internal political, democracy inside the party itself, things will not change. Those old people will come. It's only you change the bottle and you have the old wine. So it's still too early to evaluate this government, this system. But I would tend to suggest that we must have very independent judiciary. We must have all independent constitutional bodies. We must give more power to the president, and there must be balance of power with the president and the prime minister. This is a sticking point, and this has been agreed to by the parties. But somehow the other, the sycophants of the ruling party might create problem. But I hope something will work out. The students are still strong, but they have been little. What should I say? They are little. They did not perform all that well in the last election, but then the party in Bhutan, they have done very good. The new generation has come up with the prime minister. That's excellent. My congratulations to Nepalese people. So we are still, I would say, in a crossroad. Hopefully things will work out better. Thank you very much. With that,
Thank you.
I end my little
Thank you, Dr.
introduction to
Karim.
the.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
your insights. You started with the just observation, started with the Indian dynasty like Motilal Nehru, and you just provided your insight on the rise of Islam in a positive way in Bangladesh. That would be shows the optimism and hopeful the people of the people of that country, and I guess the neighborhood. So but yet to see that when we have the Bangladesh election that was happened due to the youth-led protests, and you just mentioned that we saw the different phase in the Nepal, and but not in the Bangladesh. The generational shift, the politics shift to the third generation. So the rivalry too. So that we will discuss in the questions. But let me invite Major General Basnet for his 3 minutes remark. Major Basnet. Please, you are muted.
Mute. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much, Dr. Indu, for inviting me, and it's so nice to be together with all my known friends and to be once again together to see each other, at least on the web. We're talking about dynasty, power, and stability, and the post-election Bangladesh. Let me focus more on the let's say the post-election. The post-election dynamics and what changes. I think for Bangladesh, I think these elections may reinforce the status quo. And the likelihood of the ruling leadership, the BNP consolidating power further. And the third point that I would like to raise is the opposition space may shrink as Awami League was banned from participation. So the opposition there, the seeds of instability still remains. In Nepal's case, I think it's an elections trigger. I think the change that has come over is more on a political signal rather than the new Rashtriya Swatantra Party that came with almost two-thirds, just 2 seats short as a political force we can give, and the risks are all there. But it has triggered coalition reconfiguration. It has changed leadership reshuffling, and it has also given one thing is policy renegotiations. So election in Nepal and Bangladesh are not endpoints. I think they are the starting points for bargaining. So the new parliament is unusually fresh, with many first-time lawmakers in both the countries, yet limited opposition space and exclusion of stakeholders in Bangladesh and in Nepal as well. So, I mean, victory is not stability. So a mandate must translate into delivery. So when I say that, I think while the mandate signals and gives a political way about, so that it's more about demand for governability and constitutional recalibration and elections and the seats, whether it's two-thirds in Bangladesh or whether it is almost two-thirds, they can make two-thirds in Nepal. So the 4 tests will remain determined. One is first step. One is restoring law and order without retribution. Second is delivering cost of living relief amid inflation, and particularly with the Persian Wall transition now, and currency pressure. And the third is repairing institutional neutrality after years of polarization. And the last is ensuring inclusion, as well as minorities dissenting voices. So regionally, I think Kathmandu and Dhaka must recalibrate ties with India while balancing relations with China and US in an era of intensifying strategic competitions in the Bay of Bengal. And I think Nepal and Bangladesh has delivered decisive electoral verdict, but the leaders' test now begins. So in both Bangladesh and Nepal, the way ahead, it fits with the strategic theories, small capacity theory, which is a strong institution underpinning national power. And second is small states strategy for credibility and stability, amplifying diplomatic influence. And the third is strategic governance for domestic governance, especially. So particularly for Nepal, I see 3 strategic frameworks. One is institutional capacity, which should be the engine of the state power. Second is national strategic stability. This is the core of the state resilience. And third is international credibility. When I say international credibility, it is both a trust from the people within, and so that's the currency of diplomacy. So with this, I end my initial statement. I look forward to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Basnath. You in your remarks you mentioned about the new party, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, that have the majority in that election, and how you just framed that 3 future frameworks of that with the neighbor countries and with the great power competition, as we already have in the era of the great power competition in the Pacific. And you emphasize that to recalibrate the relations with India, being a neighbor country at the border, with the borders connected with the people-to-people connection, and so on. And you also just put some tests for them too, like how these new governments, like they will have the test of kind of like their trust and their credibility in the institutions, how their maturity, their experience, like what I say in my words. I have the questions on your remarks, but I will invite first Dr. Sri Radha for his opening statement. Sri Radha. I guess her connection is
Uh, uh,
yeah. Dr. Shriyada, you can turn off your
Yes.
video, I guess.
Yes, you can turn off your video if that's a bandwidth problem.
Okay,
We
can you hear me now?
Yeah,
It
yes, we
seems
hear
yes,
you.
like
yes,
that.
ma'am.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
okay.
that's fine.
All right. I'm sorry about the network. Thanks, Indu, for this invitation. So happy to be here amongst old friends. At least we get to meet virtually, if not in person, on and off. Okay, so let me just draw your attention. I know we are discussing Nepal and Bangladesh today, but if you're looking at South Asia, I would think let's look at Sri Lanka. And we've seen how, a very intense drive by the youth and the civil society led to such severe changes. And then we have election which is very free and fair, where NPP coalition came in, headed by, Anurag Kumara Dissanayake. And things have fallen in place. Yes, there are challenges for the nation because economic and I think it's true to all the South Asian states that we're discussing, especially Nepal and Bangladesh, that the economic distress was really true, both all for Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh. We've seen the youth, of course, the triggers are different, and we won't go to the history of the triggers and the movement of this, the uprising and all of that. But for several years, we've seen, and we keep talking about this point about South Asia having the youth dividend. So while the youth dividend is essential, important for other economic activities, it is also true that many of these youth were not finding economic opportunities. Education was not commensurate with the jobs they were getting. In Nepal, you saw a large amount of, young population moving out of Nepal. In Bangladesh, they were underemployed. They were not employed, so there was a lot of distress. And of course, in Bangladesh, we know the movement started over the quota system, and how that then spiraled into something else, and all of that. So of course elections got held, and I think that was something that I've been always very upbeat about, that elections was something that people wanted. There were many issues during those 18 months, and I remember discussing on many of these platforms. Bangladeshi friends were saying they were not upbeat about elections, they were not hopeful. Indians were certainly not hopeful about elections, but I somehow got a feeling that people wanted elections. And finally, we saw, I was there, in fact, as an international observer in Dhaka, and I watched elections very closely that day. And yes, of course, as was mentioned by General Kareem, that Bangladesh has gone back to dynastic politics. I agree. But I think it's going to be a change this time. Uh, Firstly, of course, Tariq Rahman, I think, having been away from Bangladesh for 17 odd years, probably has had the advantage of looking at things far more objectively now. The way he had to leave under very difficult circumstances, the struggle that they've had has probably an impact. And the fact that for so many past 17, 18 years, BNP was in the wilderness, right? So for them to reinvent themselves, and we've seen how the local leaders in BNP in Bangladesh has been able to move, at least in a certain way, in the optics, or and also on ground, I would say, in terms of policies, from what we used to perceive as a very rightist political party to a far more centrist liberal political party. And this was in urge to what the public demanded. I think that's how I see it. Yes, I was very, in fact, I think I was constantly writing op-eds about NCP, the youth. I'd met a few of them every time I would visit Dhaka in those 18 months. And as I think was mentioned, brilliant students, brilliant, lot of people. But unfortunately, the politics of Bangladesh has always been a bit complicated. And NCP, clearly because of inexperience and the internal division that they had, they were not able to garner much public support. But what I feel now, while dynastic politics is something that we've all struggled with in South Asia, but this time hopefully it'll be different, because I feel the opposition is going to be different. We've always seen democracy in Bangladesh barely existed. Opposition was invariably on the roads. Within the parliament, we never saw. This time, I think the grammar of politics in Bangladesh has to be different. We've seen that immediately in the post-election period, when both leader of the winning party, Mr. Rahman, met with the opposition leader. There has been civility. There has been many places of engagement, which is a first for Bangladesh. And I think right now, the way I see it, a religious political party has become mainstream. I mean, the percentage we are talking about is stupendous. For somebody who never had more than 8 to 12 seats, has now got, that many 68 seats. So, of course, but again, there has to be a change. And I see that within Jamaat. And of course, I also was there in Dhaka itself when the first student election of Daksu was taking place. I saw the electoral campaigns. I've seen how they were able to change their entire narrative to kind of appeal to the students. I've also seen post election how these students have continued to at least apparently support all the students. Every time I go to Dhaka, I often meet with, that's one of my core interests, that I often go to different universities to speak and meet with the youth. And they've often told me as to how which Jamaat student group, which is a Shibir, was known to be an extremely violent group, right? Nobody had given them any political, how shall I say, mileage. But ever since elections, I've seen that they have changed their ways. They are doing things to ensure that the students are benefited with their presence. Similarly, I feel at a larger national level, with Jamaat now having evolved, of course, not to mention the fact that, some of the comments about women and all of that has not gone down well with, I would think, the electorate. But in many instances, and I've often met with Dr. Tahir, who's, the vice chairman of Jamaat, and who has always talked about the fact that they have evolved from their position of 1971 to 1975 and elsewhere. So that talks about pragmatism. That reflects that, if they're going to be in their very conservative space, it is unlikely for the electorate to, give them any support. It is also a fact that Jamaat, there are many factors, and we don't have time to discuss all of that in a discussion like this. But there were many areas, especially one of the main aspect has been the corrupt-free image of Jamaat. While they have known to be violent, there's been many instances when known about their ability for street fights and all of that. But as compared to the other mainstream parties, which is Awami League here and BNP, they have not resorted to the typical bribery and the local thugism that we've seen. There's a typical Bengali word which is known as chadabaji, and I don't know how to translate that in English, which is something mainstream political leaders have, and especially the leaders in the district areas, have always resorted to. I think Jamaat came out distinctly there, that they didn't resort to those kind of, so which is why also you see a percentage. And I feel a lot of anti-BNP vote went to Jamaat, because they were angry with some of the things that we saw BNP doing in these last 17, 18 months. Exactly where the vacuum that was left by Awami League was filled overnight by the BNP leaders. Of course, we also saw BNP leadership, I think, throughout about 1,000 odd BNP members who were accused of these malpractices. But of course, I'm saying the entrenched system is there. It's very difficult to break the systemic problems. But I would say, and I'm going to end here, that let's give this government a chance. Yes, it's too early, and I do hope the July Charter, which I think one might, have a bit of differences over some or, particular aspect or the other, but certainly checks and balances are going to be introduced with this, the July Charter implementation. And I think the problem in Bangladesh always has been, as we heard being mentioned by Dr. General Karim also, that this 3/4 majority, 2/3 majority gives the government or the political party a brute majority. And we've seen how they were able to always marginalize the opposition. In this instance, I don't feel that they will be an opportunity to marginalize this particular opposition, which is, Jamaat and NCP coalition. So there would be different, there would be disagreements with the party and the government and the opposition. That's quite natural, and that should be debated out of the parliament also. But at the same time, I think the July Charter, implementation of July Charter, will actually ensure the ills and the malpractices of the past, which was done by these authoritarian leaders, should now be put to an end. And I'm upbeat because my main contention about this youth buzz that we discuss is I'm not talking about NCP, I'm talking about youth pressure in general in Bangladesh, that they will, through other measures, put that, have that pressure on the government to ensure, because July Charter is something the entire nation agrees to. As I'm saying, there may be one particular matter that they may not agree to. But similarly, in Nepal, again, we've seen, while the immediate trigger was of those, social media bans and all of that, but I think all the leaders, if they're invested in improving the economic conditions, the social stability, the political, democratic norms, the youth will give them a chance. And again, another point we need to remember, that youth is impatient. So if they see any, even if a popularly elected leader not going, walking the path that was expected from them, they will bound to be changed. And I think the leaders now, whether it's Nepal, whether it's Bangladesh, will be extremely cognizant of what the youth want. And I think it is in that particular frame that they will ensure that, what we've seen in Nepal, this constant roulette that has constantly happened in terms of trying to keep with the power system, irrespective of whether you are able to, that I think will change, hopefully both in Nepal and Bangladesh.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Radha, for your insightful remarks. And just connecting with your remarks with the youth protest, I have a question to Dr. Karim and Major General Basnayat. In my perspective, what I see that there are three tests in front of the new governments. Dr. Karim, to you, the first test is the youth test that Dr. Shirada emphasized on to satisfy their aspiration, their ambitions. And now we know that youth had changed. They have, that due to the technology or the education or that they saw in the past, and the fallout of the governments in both the countries. And the second test is internal rivalry between parties, the coalition among groups. And for you, Mr. Basnayat, like we know that Rashtriya Swatantrata Party is the new party, but his founder, I read that founder has some legal controversies. And the Biren Shah, the designated prime minister, he joined this party just in like a few months ago. So what you see that the most challenging test is either the youth protest or internal rivalry, or making a good relation with India. I would particularly say with India. Major Basnath, first over to you, and then Dr. Karim.
Okay. Firstly, I mean, if you look at the last two decades, with the new constitutions and the governance, with the peace process that came about, we have to realize that the nation's national priority was given to something else, more on party politics, politics for power, politics for, a safe for near and dear. So these were the things that was really frustrating. So the national challenges went out severely into the so the trust deficiency rose into a height of no weight and see mechanisms. So if you point out the national challenges, I think it is very well known of Nepal. It is, of course, governance. It is socialization of corruption. It is intra-party differences, And it is, of course, alliances and coalitions that form a way of coming into power rather than addressing the needs of the people. And I think as Nepal possesses almost half of its population at the age of 80 and 40, or 18 to 40. And most of the, turnouts of the voting was also through that, though we have many residents temporarily living abroad who hadn't had the rights to cast a vote. That would have made other big differences on the election outcome. But anyway, looking at the challenges, I think there was expectations or enough was enough. So and there are quite enough signals also through the streets that the youths were protesting, but the ignorance of that's why I always talk about the turning point did not come as a surprise. It was the ignorance of the political parties trying to acknowledge the fact that the frustration, the trust on the political parties were diminishing. So that led to the protest, of course. And so it was supposed to be a very peaceful protest, but suddenly, which it changed into that ignited the whole episode of the change of governments, and the frustrations came on the street. But with the new mandate now, as I told you earlier, it is a political signal for change, but not yet a force for change. So the challenge remains within the political parties. So the biggest risk, I think, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, which is internal differences that may come about, that rather than addressing the national issues. So this is the greatest risk the country is playing. But as long as the incumbent Prime Minister, Biden Shah, plays a role denying politics for power, and he should start focusing on the three things that I said, with politics of development, politics of governance, and politics of credibility. If that is the way he moves about, I think it will trigger a lot of chances for the youths to understand that the country is moving in the right direction, which will give them patience to look for an outcome, or let's say a strategic outcome, in a year or two. Otherwise, I think people look for changes, and even 100 days is difficult. So managing 100 days is difficult unless things are being addressed, an issue week after week. So I think the challenges remain more vibrant than the outcome, but there is a glimmering light in the tunnel, and he should avoid politics for power. I think the next Prime Minister must focus on development, governance, and credibility.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Kari, what's your say on these most pressing challenge? Is there a youth's aspiration, the fulfilling the youth's ambitions and aspirations, or internal rivalry that Major General Basna told, that is internal conflict still exists? So in what is in the Bangladesh case, or making a good relation with India, what's the most pressing challenge in front of Tariq Rahman, the Prime Minister?
I think the greatest challenge he now faces, Tariq Rahman, is handling the economy. Because as Professor Datta said, that I take her words, like underemployed, employed youth. From Nepal, I think every day 15,000 young Nepalese leave the country every day. That's very, very, very interesting. And in my country, a young man finishes her honors course. He looks for a job or a employment or a university degree in America or Canada, anywhere. He finds it, even in Malaysia or Singapore or in Hong Kong or in China. Now, unless we can stop this migration of the young, they're the brains of the country. We cannot really do good to this country. That's my hunch. And development has to be there in the real sense. Development, corruption-free development. Development is institutionalize the judiciary, make the judiciary totally independent. This is not being done. A landmark, judgment was given by the appellate division of the country long time back. I think 1999, that make the judiciary totally independent and free from any influence by the executive. But that has not been done in letter and spirit by any regime so far. I hope Tariq Rahman will handle this case, and if judiciary is totally free, I can assure you 60% of the problem of this country can be overcome, or maybe more than that. And development, we have problems, inherent structural problems. We have a lot of people in the country in a small space, and but the youths are very, 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 very vibrant. They have a lot of aspirations. they want to change this country, they will not give up. The
Thank
youth
you,
will
sir.
not give up. If there's a problem, you are deviating from the main aspirations of the youth generation, they will come back to street. But I'm sure BNP is now a more matured party, and Tariq Rahman has seen things from a distance. He should be more objective. I'm sure there will be accommodation, cooperation with the opposition party like Jamaat Islam and NCP, and they should come to good sense should prevail, and they should come to a political reconciliation. There, whatever the agreement is there in the July Declaration or July Charter. Charter by and large should be honored by all the parties. Now within BNP is fine. Within BNP is okay. Tariq Rahman has full control on the country, on the party, but as Sriratha was saying, Chandabaji and all those things are not taken care of, and the local thugism like BNP, what he has done, put all the BNP men as administrator of city corporations, local government. No, that's not fair. You are putting all vice chancellors of the public university have been put, the party people have been paid. So that is not a good omen, not a good signal for the country. So this must be taken care of, and there is a serious social inequality in the country, economic inequality in the country. Maybe 90% of the assets are enjoyed by 10% of the population, and 10% of the assets are enjoyed by the 90% of the people. It's a serious dilemma, serious contradiction that we have in the society. This must be addressed. Now, government is going for many welfare-oriented programs, like giving them, old age pensions, widow pensions, then freedom fighter pensions. These are good programs, but then they must be made to work. People must come up. Bring more education, which is technical oriented, vocational oriented. Give them so that they can, if they're going out, they can earn more money for the country. We have only two supply lines for our economy. One is remittance, the other is our RMG. RMG is in deep problem now because of the war, and also our remittance is in deep problem because of the war. And the other one is, third one is agriculture. Agriculture, we are doing better, fine, okay. And internal rivalry, I don't think BNP will do well, but the Jamaat Islami will be a formidable force. NCP, the youth force, will be a very formidable force. Anything you are slipping out of the rail line, I think they will take care of it. They are very, very agile about that. They are very aware of that, and the ethos and the slogans of the July Charter is disregarded. There will be problem, but then you can always work out through discussion, through dialogue. This can be worked out. I'm sure the Parliament will take care of that. Now, another sticking point is our relations with India. I think things are improving. India is seen to be positive. He wants to have better relations with Bangladesh. Let me make it very vocal, and I would ask Professor Sriratha Dattu to take a note of it. Please do not treat us as equal, sovereign equality. India is a big country, we all agree. India is like a Himalaya to us. But when you are treating the other UN member, you must treat them at equal footing. We're on the basis of sovereign equality, peaceful coexistence, and peace and prosperity for the people. People-to-people contact should be encouraged. Like the water sharing in the Ganges is a big problem for Bangladesh. We are suffering. Our Sundarban, the largest mangrove forest, is dying because of the shortage of sweet water in the Ganges basin. And the saline water, there's a huge intrusion of saline water, and a lot of young girls are losing their reproductive health. They cannot bear child because they are suffering from saline water during the monsoon season. So India must be more people-oriented, people-friendly, and look at we are a poor nation, so we are still an LDC. We are trying to jump to the next level, but it will take time. So that is a problem. But again, I will say BNP is probably doing a wrong, giving a wrong signal by not prioritizing meritocracy so far in last 1 month. This is what in my observation. We should take the example from Singapore. Singapore always put emphasis on meritocracy, and that meritocracy and justice Because of that, Singapore has gone up so high. Discipline. Then, yeah, we lack discipline. As a nation, we have problem with discipline. But that again comes to the leadership. If the leadership is corrupt, nothing is going to work. So corruption must be handled very, very strongly with all the forces that the government can exert. This will be my final say. And youth are impatient, definitely. Tariq Rahman so far is going pragmatic, but no. In the last employments that he has given as a VC of the national public universities, and the administrator in the city corporations, the district councils, they are all BNP men, and they were defeated in the last MP election.
Thank you.
So we have
Thank you, sir.
challenges, and we have challenge from the United States as well. They have a role here to bridge the gap internally, both internally and also between India, China. India, China are both relevant to Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks and answering the questions. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Jahid Khan for to take over the session. I guess I don't see him here. I don't know if he's disconnected. Moving forward, I just my next question to Dr. Shri Radha. Dr. Shri Radha, what's your expectation? What's India's expectations in what do you see? What is India expecting from Bangladesh, new prime ministers, and of course from Nepal? What do you see there? I guess, yeah. You can turn off your video, please.
There in Bangladesh, India's expectation is that our core, concern from Bangladesh is on security. In the past, we've seen how Bangladesh, especially a BNP political party, being very, how should I say, cause for security problems for India, not only from them itself, so they also allowed external power, which is 2001 to 2006. But now I think it's not unknown to the Bangladeshi government at all about India's concern. And I think in all the election manifesto, whether it's BNP, whether it's NCP, they have alluded to the fact that Bangladesh will not be allowed to use against any neighbor. And I'm presuming they would mean India in this case, whether they haven't named India. So I think they're aware of it, and that's the basic requirement from Bangladesh for India. On the other hand, so far as Bangladesh is concerned, and I'm going to repeat myself here, that often there's been a misperception, I would say, or a perception about how in the past India did not address Bangladesh's concern. And on the contrary, Bangladesh did everything that India wanted, because we've seen how the Sheikh Hasina government addressed the security concerns, and we've seen the cross-border connectivity. But I think there's a problem here. We also need to understand that much of the bilateral initiatives that were taken were meant to benefit both the sides. It wasn't, but the kind of because there was an angst about the way Awami League was, ruling, that angst also fell on India. There was a kind of a continuous thing, but there were two issues always that India somehow seemed reluctant to address. One was the water sharing issue, and also the violence on the border. And I think it's time now to re-examine those issues. We of course have the Ganges Treaty up for renewal soon, and I hope that will go through without any problems. As mentioned earlier, that yes, there is a problem of water resources just now. The same amount of water is not available. We know climate changes, other environmental problems are there, but Bangladesh is an agro-based country. Our West Bengal, through which many of the common rivers flow, is also extremely agro-based, state. So clearly there are needs and requirements in both sides, but when you have a friendly neighborly environment, it is possible to overcome these challenges and discuss them in an objective manner and find out a path which is good for both. So I'm hoping that this new spirit we've seen, in the recent crisis, India has already sent over 5,000 diesel through the India-Bangladesh pipeline, which is also a part of the annual amount that we send. So this is one particular cache that has gone. We've also seen, I think the visa regime is now slowly, being normalized. I'm hoping that the connectivity corridors, and I think buses have already started. So much of the problems that remain stuck for the last 18 months should now be revived. And I keep saying this, that India must listen to what Dhaka wants. In the neighborhood, it's not about, I mean, India, of course, is a larger economy, and I do agree there's always a feeling in Bangladesh that, that the smaller neighbors are not treated well. But I think there's a perception issue, and India needs to address the perception issue, because in international politics, perception plays a role. Whether we agree or not, we have to discuss it, debate it, argue about it. And I think that's something India never did, and always said, oh, we are doing the best that we can, kind of a situation. So I do hope that there will be a break from the past. And, also understand that right now at this point of time, and I keep saying this, that, Tariq Rahman is going to actually have a challenge to convince Bangladeshis that working with India is, good for both. Because of the angst that I said in the past, that we've been too closely associated. We've also seen Sheikh Hasina still in India, being extremely politically charged statement, which hasn't gone down well with Bangladeshis also. And another question is again about the future of Awami League. While I keep arguing that Sheikh Hasina's political future is over and out, but what about those 1,000 Awami League leaders who had to flee Bangladesh? And some of them are in India, some of them are living in different parts of the countries, which is a pity, because Bangladesh is again one of the largest political parties of Awami League is one of the largest political parties of Bangladesh, and also has a huge follower there. And it is not correct for a party like that to be out of the political landscape. So there has to be some discussion as to how, and there are many leaders who are actually within Bangladesh, but I mean, there's a lack of leadership just now. So, they're not able to form in any kind of a political entity. I think there has to be some kind of a discussion at the bilateral level, at the internal level, to understand where one takes this. It is true that for India, Bangladesh is an important neighbor. There is no doubt about that. And I think Tariq Rahman, including other leaders of BNP and including Mr. Dr. Tahir of Jamaat, has always said this to me, that India is an extremely important neighbor for us. And why will we not work well with India? So let's hope that all the leaders can walk the talk, because I mean, there are different, stakeholders in different parts of both India and Bangladesh. We will see, for one particular, like a positive step, we saw our Indian, we had somebody go for Khalida Zia's funeral. Foreign minister went, but soon after we saw that cricket debacle that happened. So clearly there are different lines of messaging that happens even for Bangladesh. And I've written about this many times over, that even in Bangladesh, for instance, I'll give you an example. When that unfortunate crash happened in the school boundaries, and Bangladesh invited India's medical team, but initially they were not allowed to practice for the first few hours, saying that, oh, you're just here to observe, you don't have the qualifications of a degree here to. But then that got addressed when the Chinese team came. So I'm saying there are stakeholders in all polity who don't want the relationship to normalize, but I think the onus is on the leadership, and to take that forward, to understand these elements will be there, but how do we deal with them? And we can only deal with them when we know that our interaction and engagement is meant to bring dividends to both sides. I think the youth engagement is something that India hasn't done. There has been some kind of some think tank organization who have worked with it, but I think on a large scale, youth engagement on both sides is extremely important to take the bilateral direction forward, not only for Bangladesh and India, but also Nepal and India, because much of the leadership that India is used to in Nepal and in Bangladesh are the seniors. We don't understand or know these new leaders at all. But for the dialogue to change, for the politics of grammar to change, we need to have a far better coherent understanding of the leadership on both sides.
Thank you, Dr. Srirada. Very balanced and very insightful. I guess the decision makers should listen this. Now I would like to invite Dr. Jai. Please go ahead, shoot your questions. Though we have the time, less time, but
I think I'll just try to make two very important points. I mean, we have had a lot of discussions which are mostly focused on the internal dynamics of each countries. But as an academic, let me also approach the thing from a...
There's a problem with your sound.
Yeah. I think it's the connection or something.
Can you hear me now, sir?
your voice is breaking. Just you can turn off your video, please.
Okay, let me just turn off the video. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah. Yes. I guess so.
As an academist, that we also approach the topic here from a subsystemic point of view.
No, we can't hear you clearly, Dr. Jai.
Can you hear me now? Sorry,
Yes.
we had a... Is it okay now? Can you hear me? Okay. So,
We
as I
can
was saying,
hear you, but it's breaking, but the voice is breaking.
all right. Is that audible now? Is that audible now? Better? Is it okay?
Yes, please go ahead. Let's see how it works. Just
Okay, so as I was saying, we do have, despite all the positivism and positive remarks and also all other things that we have been talking, there is two cardinal truth about the South Asian region. The first is it remains the least integrated region in the world. And the second, it also houses the most poor people, the most number of poor people in the world. Now, that gives you a real assessment of what we are doing in terms of a South Asian community. And one of the things I think for what it happens is because our very conception of power and stability, the two important items that we have put in the heading of today's topic, and the understanding of power and stability, in particular the power, it should not be viewed as a victory, as a dominance, as a glory. But for the South Asian context, it should be about the possibility of removing obstacle that the human beings are facing in the South Asia to realize their life potentials. That is not happening. That is why we have a crippling SARC. We do not have a regional organization, unlike any other region, a vibrant one. And that is where I think the efforts goes. And this is exactly what I was just alluding to initially, that if we have failed to revive SARC in South Asia as a regional entity for the common aspiration of the people, what would the small nations in South Asia? I mean, this SARC is bogged down primarily because of India and Pakistan's rivalry. What would be an enlightened look for the small South Asian countries like Nepal and Bangladesh, Bhutan, to come together and still look after their people? That is the most vexing question that we need to address here as a regional point of view. And the second issue that I would like to address and point out, and probably Professor Srirada would recall, during Indira Gandhi's visit to the USA in 1982, she was making remarks to Ronald Reagan that our hands for friendship is stretched out to all. One friendship does not come in the way of the other. What if Bangladesh, which the Bangladesh First policy, which essentially assumes the same position, what if that policy is Bangladesh assuming, following, what would be India's enlightened response Will it be an obstacle if Bangladesh is more having a good friendship with Pakistan, China, in India? What would be the dynamics working out here? Because that is where we are not finding a lot of common grounds, despite some of the convergences on this in this area. So these are the two questions for Professor Sriradha Datta. And I do have a small question for Binod sir. Sir, I have been observing. I've read all your pieces and also the recent one. I was just wondering, given that RSP is a relatively new political entity, it came into being in 2022, I think, and the youth leadership, I would assume, have not had much sort of experience in governance, and the main demand of the youth is good governance. And also the leader, who was also the mayor of Kathmandu, had a different has checkered stand on the Akhand Bharat issue. What would be the impact of this, sort of a relatively new party to govern internally to deliver what the youth want, and also externally to maintain a stable relationship with India? Thank you.
Okay. Shall I take the question? Right.
Please.
When I just put a point earlier about the regional, both Kathmandu and Dhaka recalibrating ties with India. I think this is very important. Let me, I also pointed out in my earlier statement saying that RSP is a political signal and yet not a force to really. But the manifesto that they have brought out does have a strong, valid points for addressing the national strategic challenges that Nepal has been facing. So when you talk about, I have been, let me talk about the foreign relations part. Firstly, recalibrating relationship means having a stronger relationship with India and with balancing China and the United States and other powers. So Nepal needs to move from a largely reactive posture to more a strategic interest-based approach. Yeah. And secondly, I think economic, rather than pressing on the security as a platform for relationship, economic diplomacy has to play an anchor. So India, being the largest trading partner and the major routes for, so this has to be, so this can be with expanding export capacity, it can be by improving cross-border infrastructure. And third is Nepal should pursue a balanced regional posture, which means equicentric and while maintaining strong ties with India, it must also engage constructively with China and other powers. So the goal actually is not to choose sides, but to diversify economy and diplomatic options. So by thereby strengthening bargaining power. So the fourth would be security and border management. It needs modernization. Fifth is there must be a greater political consistency and institutional depth. Yeah. Finally, public perception matters. So both the governments, Delhi and Kathmandu, must work together so that the public perception comes out. So recalibration is about one, Kathmandu finding space in New Delhi, being mature, balanced, clear with open diplomacy, maintaining a close partnership with India while asserting Nepal's sovereignty and long-term interest in the changing geopolitical environments. So if this approach, policy approach is, and I feel that the recent statements by the upcoming government, the RSP, I think they would prefer to go in this direction and find a quarterly working environment so that we all can grow together. So India and Kathmandu's, Nepal's and India's relation plays a very important part in the dynamics of addressing our challenges.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Sri Radha, I guess Dr. Jahid asked one question for you too. Dr. Jahid, could you please repeat the question?
Sri Radha is not available. Let me try to address Dr. Jahid's question. But I'll take the idea given by Sri Radha. Dr. Sri Radha is, she was talking about the security concern between Bangladesh and India. To the best of my understanding and my knowledge of Bangladesh, I can assure you, I'm more than sure, I hope so, that the present government will not give any shelter to the infiltrators or terrorists from Northeast India. There was a suicidal decision taken by our previous government. Should not have taken this. No, why should we shelter the secessionist forces from India? No, we should not do that. Personally, I'm totally against it, and I think this government will honor that. So, Dr. Sri Radha, you can rest assured that this will not be done, and I hope that will give a lot of impetus to improve the good relations between India and Bangladesh. Coming to somebody asked me a question, I think I saw in the chat box. Is the dynastic politics nothing wrong in that? No, I did not mean that dynastic politics is bad. No. This is the trend that we have. The entire Indian subcontinent has inherited this problem. This is a colonial legacy. And then we have class division in South Asia. We have caste division. We have elites and non-elites, jamindars and non-jamindars, and so on and so forth. This has brought about this dynastic politics. It has both pros and cons. It has good part and also bad part. There are bad parts also. But Bangladesh, I think, will soon overcome this dynastic politics. Will soon overcome. India also has come up, but Pakistan is still far away from that. Pakistan is still bent, is what should I say? Is grappling with this dynastic politics. This present government, they have dynastic politics, and the opposition also, like the Bhutto family. That's not so bad because people ask for it. We want Bhutto family, we want Zia Rahman family, we want Sheikh family, we want Gandhiji family. We want, Sri Lanka's Nepal is same thing. But then I think there is a change. Youth do not want that. Youth doesn't want that. And Dr. Zahid, you raised another question about the SARC. I think unless Pakistan and India settles to the issue, nothing can be done. And that's a very $1 million question. Maybe by the end of this millennium, whether Pakistan and India will settle the scores. As long as Kashmir is there, I don't see any future of SARC, and that's not a possibility. And I don't think any alternative is available. Let us remain in as a member of UN, as a member of many local regional institutions, a member of that, and live in harmony, peace, and follow the principles of sovereign equality, peaceful coexistence, mutual non-interference in internal affairs of each other. That's a big problem in South Asia, interfering in the internal affairs of each other. That's a big problem. Unless this is sorted out, South Asian politics will not improve, geopolitics will not improve. This is my final say. And BIMSTEC is not even workable. And then security, I can assure you, Bangladesh will not do that mistake anymore. But Bangladesh has to play a very fine game of diplomacy, balancing India, China, America. Pakistan is far away from us. It doesn't really matter. But let's live in peace and harmony. Let's cooperate, collaborate. Why not? Please give us our water, due share of water, as stipulated in the UN conventions. We are asking for a due share. Without water, the civilization cannot survive. People cannot survive. We cannot live. We cannot linger. We cannot have prosperity. We can, of course, sort it out through diplomacy, given the goodwill. Hundreds of our patients who are going to India. I think visa regime is being improved now from both sides. There are positive trends. Let's work together. India neighborhood first policy is one of the most declared objectives of the foreign policy of India. That has floundered in South Asia. India must revive that. If India revives that, things will fall into place. With that, I think we have to do our internal. We have to improve our internal politics, accountability, transparency, separation of power. Prime Minister should not hold all the powers. and we must not interfere in the internal affairs of our neighbors. But we must uphold the national interest of Bangladesh at any cost. Thank you very much, Dr. Hindu. Thank you.
All right. All right. So thank you very much, sir. Professor Sirada Datta, are you here? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I'm here. Just two quick
Yes.
points to the issues that you raised. One was on South Asian regional integration. Yes, we've heard it for so many long years. We've read some amazing reports done by World Bank and other multilateral organizations about why it's not been integrated. But while India-Pakistan has always been cited as an issue, I actually feel that there are far deeper problems within South Asia, which is why we've seen, even despite that, why has the sub-region of India, Nepal, Bangladesh not been functional? You remember we tried to do a connectivity corridor among the sub-region. That didn't work out, despite all the four countries trying to work together. Just now, while we speak, during the interim government of Bangladesh, we had signed the energy deal. I'm hoping that energy deal of India, Bangladesh and Nepal through Indian overhead, which will then hopefully also include Bhutan at some point of time, because for Bangladesh, energy is one of the most primary, commodity that they need, and I think India can come in here very strongly. So I hope the sub-region of cooperation will begin with this energy. But I think there's a more, and my MPhil thesis was on SARC and SARC integration, so I'll come back to that later when we have longer time for discussion. But I feel there's a intrinsic problem within the South Asian states as to why economic interdependence remains so low, despite potential. But coming back to the other question about, I think India has to accept the fact that Bangladesh will engage with other political, other external powers. Though General Karim did mention Pakistan is, not relevant at all, but we've seen during the interim's time that Pakistan leadership was jumping in and out of Dhaka. We saw they were being taken towards our northeast, right? So all of that was being done. So whether they were just rhetorical or what, we've also seen ISI doing photo ops. We've never seen in any part of the world ISI going and doing photo ops. So clearly there was a messaging that was, being sent to India, which obviously India was not happy to receive. But I'm hoping, and many other Bangladeshis friends like General Karim have said that, that's irrelevant to us, that particular nation, of course. But the only, I think, ask that India has of Bangladesh is that irrespective of Bangladesh's need to engage with all external powers, they should not be at the cost of India in terms of the security parameters. Of course, in terms of trade and other issues, there's a different, but I think we just have to now focus on the bilateral first. But I'm also going to end here by saying that I always believe that if regionalism has to prosper in South Asia, India and Bangladesh will have to work together. It is from them that this whole network of cooperation will begin. And I just had one point here. I think Squadron Leader Sadrul had put a point about dynastic politics. What is my problem with dynastic politics? My problem with dynastic politics is that it becomes entrenched into a systemic cause for malaise. The problems associated, if it was if the mostly in a dynastic political system, the checks and balances within the political party doesn't exist, or they kind of get filtered away, over the years, which is the problem. If you just example, let's look at Jamaat, or let's look at the non-dynastic political parties in Bangladesh. It is done a bit differently in terms of the cadres, in terms of the choosing the leadership. So there are some checks and balances within the political party which is required in a multi-party parliamentary system. So I'm not per se against dynastic. It's just that the problems of environment vitiating becomes obvious. But I do hope, and as I've said this earlier, also I've written about this, that I do hope the dynastic politics that we are seeing right now in Bangladesh is going to be different. They have learned their lessons hopefully from the past. But again, I also would agree here that the last 1 month, in terms of the the kind of some of the post which has been given, has not been very encouraging. But I just hope that over the time they'll probably get the rhythm, and also look at meritocracy, which should be really the first criteria for any parliament or any government to function. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to India and Bangladesh, overcoming the past problems. And it's not that two neighbors will not have problems. Of course, they will have problems. But let's focus on the things that we can work together and also address the common problems on both sides. I think if we begin there, and I don't think we need to jump into doing everything together. Incremental bilateral steps will help in building trust about each other. Both Bangladesh, Tariq Rahman needs to convey to his own people that India can be trusted, and similarly for India, we need to understand that BNP government can be trusted. So let's begin with small incremental steps and try and work on a larger, regional landscape in the years to come.
Right. Thank you very much. It's just to know that your thesis was on South Asian, on SAARC, and actually the reason I was raising this question is because from a systemic point of view, it is a tendency of aspiring powers, or regional mid-level powers, to sort of create small bilateral or trilaterals. And that is how they sort of try to limit these small countries within their sphere of influence. This is a accepted trend. And the regions, those who do not become regionally powerful like ASEAN, what happens is more pressing problems like the Rohingya issues or the Myanmar problem, that gets picked up by the ASEAN in the United Nations. Our voice or SAARC's voice is not heard or is not even relevant. So that is what is from a systemic point of view, as an academics, from a regional point of view, which this particular forum, the Consortium of Indo-Pacific Researchers, particularly promotes the regional solidarity and regional commonality that has been missing terribly in this region. That is one of the area where we all need to work, and I think you'll agree with me that this is where when the space for the small states will become more autonomous, and some bit of strategic autonomy, if not policy autonomy, if not strategic autonomy, will be able to work out. On a simple, another point about the dynastic politics, what I think is dynastic politics, actually dynasty gives an audience, it doesn't give legitimacy. That has to be earned, and if at all some kind of vertical legitimacy is earned through a dynastic entrance of a person into the politics, but the horizontal legitimacy, which matters more for political parties, that is not earned without hard work. That is what we have seen in the case of the past regime that has fled and is not no more in power. But I'm sure that is also in some way true in case of India as well. But with that, I think we are almost over the time. And if there is any final remarks from the chair, I will hand it over to the chair, please. Dr. Indu.
Thank you, Dr. Raid, a very fantastic discussion. And I would like to thank to all our panelists. That is a wonderful discussion. I will organize a discussion on SAARC, because now I know that Dr. Shirada's thesis on SAARC. So we'll get soon. And Dr. Ka, the consortium, I would like to thank to the audience. Thank you so much for your questions and for your participation.
Thank you, Dr. Indu, and we hope we see a fantastic session. I learned a lot.
Thank you, sir. It was a very lively discussion. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.